Okay, I want to talk about something we just saw live from President Biden, because just in a few hours, Hurricane Milton is going to make landfall in Florida. And earlier this hour, Joe Biden urged people to take shelter as the Category 3 storm is expected to carry historic destructiveness. But Biden also condemned lies and misinformation being spread about the storm.
Quite frankly, these lies are un-American, and there is simply no place for them. Not now, not ever. Former President Trump has led this onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That is simply not true either. They're saying that money needed for these crises are being diverted to migrants. What the heck are they talking about? Stop it. It's outrageous. It's just not true.
Okay, the president, Amanda, he talked about that because not only is it creating problems in Florida, it caused problems with the recovery efforts in North Carolina. Obviously, it's created this misinformation and dishonesty challenge in this election cycle has made life for people in Springfield, Ohio, miserable after the cats and dogs lies that were spread. But this one in particular, right? We have seen Marjorie Taylor Greene suggest somehow the government is controlling the weather to cause these hurricanes. And Donald Trump and his new buddy Elon Musk are driving this on that social media platform in a way that it's potentially affecting safety and recovery and decision-making for people whose lives are at risk. I mean, what do you make of what President Biden just said?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so long ago, I don't think, that if an elected official were to make a claim that the federal government controlled the weather, we would be getting that elected official help. Right? It wasn't that long ago. Now we're using it as a fundraising tool. Like, we have completely lost the plot. And so I actually wanted to jump up and applaud President Biden, because if we don't call it out, if we don't say how ridiculous and absurd words that he used to describe the spread of lies and misinformation and just how dangerous it is, you can see it was palpable. You could see how disgusted he was by former President Donald Trump and the Republican Party and the messages that they're using, because it's not just ugly or insulting, it's dangerous. And I like the fact that he uses the term un-American, because it takes away from the good work that Americans are doing in order to help each other out right now. It undermines all of that in order to get an extra headline or to get an extra dollar in the fundraising bucket. And, you know, we're seeing shades of that in our own politics in Canada to a much smaller scale, but we're seeing this idea that if we use misinformation, disinformation, flat out lies, we can use it to our advantage. And it's about time that people start calling it out and making sure that, you know, that we don't accelerate this kind of behavior. You know,
Benzie, I look at this and think it's absolutely awful that you would try to, capitalize on tragedy and things like this to just sort of push false narratives. And I look at it, though, and I think it's just only going to get worse. Because we all saw President Biden there, because us, the lamestream media, we carried it live so people can get factual information and survival information. The social platforms and the influencers that people say will fill the void when the market collapse of this industry inevitably reaches its conclusion, they don't go to Florida. They don't actually do the reporting on the ground. They just spread these lies that put people at risk. And as bad as this is, a cycle or two from now, electorally, it could potentially be even worse.
It is very worrying. And I agree with Amanda. I was glad to see President Biden calling out Mr. Trump's bizarre ramblings. Now, Trump is 78 years old. He's looking every day of that 78 years right now. And I don't know if the election is way closer than he thought. I think he thought in June, after the debate against Mr. Biden, that he was going to coast to come back and be president again. Ms. Harris, Vice-President Kamala Harris, has raised $1 billion since becoming the candidate. Yep. It's insane. And she has, I gather, a better organization on the ground than Mr. Trump does. So it's going to be a tight election. I don't know who's going to win, but I mean, she's more likely to win than he is, just because she has more money and better organization. But this is really not helpful in the middle of a natural disaster to be spreading lies about and misinformation, which is not helpful to first responders. It's not helpful to the people that you're purporting to serve and want to represent. It's just bizarre. And I think Mr. Trump, I don't think he's totally delusional, but I think that he sometimes goes down rabbit holes
Right.
in the silos that he's hanging out with, and it comes out, and this is what happens. It's bizarre.
Rob, you forgot to mention Harris may be more likely to win because of all the mail-in ballots going to the illegal immigrants, which is the other thing that's circulating in this election campaign on social media. But, you know, Jordan, you saw President Biden pushing back against this, and he's pushing like the right-wing ecosystem in the U.S. is pushing this. They've constructed this frame that the experts are biased, the media are out against us. Then they push out a lie, and the experts in the media call it a lie, and they go, see? We told you. And so it reinforces their persecution narrative. And the president's got to deal with that while people's lives and safety are on the line.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we were chatting off air about how just surreal it is to see the president of the United States need to name and denounce senators talking about weather control. And I think one of the things to really take away from this is the degree to which a formerly mainstream political party, the Republican Party of the United States, now has a presidential candidate that's actually fanning the flames of this disinformation, that's using it for fundraising, that's using it as an organizing tool. And I think that sometimes that on the political side, there's an appeal for that because it does mobilize people. There are a lot of people who engage with that type of dis and misinformation. But this really represents, I think, the conclusion of that, which is that you end up with a situation where you have now debates about fundamental, like, safety facts happening at a moment of national crisis. It's utterly corrosive. And it's something really that is difficult to counter because the people who are engaging with that type of disinformation, frankly, do not believe the words that come out of the president's mouth. They are not consuming mainstream media. And so how do you now pull that apart in order to kind of fix that environment, that information environment? This is a really difficult thing to do in our current context.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, is a congresswoman, not a senator. Can't remember the state, maybe denial, but she's in Congress. She is a lawmaker. But, you know, Georgia. But it got so bad today, Tim, that the press conference that Joe Biden had earlier in the day with government officials to respond to a natural disaster, Fox News was carrying it, because that's what you do. Even Fox News will carry a Democratic president in a state of natural disaster. And Trump's campaign manager is tweeting about, oh, they're just another propaganda tool. For the Harris campaign, it's like, buddy, they're telling them what to do and where to go so they can live.
But there's no separation anymore between politics and collective responsibility and what's good for the whole. It's one big continuous war. And the problem with that is also on all of us because there's an audience for it. Yes, the system's failed. Yes, there are people that are deliberately undermining the system and manipulating it all, but we in our own lives need to push back against this. As long as Trump has an audience, as long as Marjorie Taylor Greene, as long as Musk have audiences, they're going to do this because they see the response that comes from it all. I mean, long gone, sadly, it seems, is the notion that, you know, country is greater than party or political pursuit. And it truly is worrisome as it relates to Mr. Trump and Mr. Musk. They have no rules through which they seem to govern themselves either. It's about ego or opportunity or some combination of the two. And until people call it out, it's not going to fix itself.
But consequence, Tim, has kind of disappeared, right? Like, I remember when Mitt Romney debated Barack Obama and trying to push back against the notion that the Republicans wouldn't put women in office. And he talked about having binders full of women, meaning a list of competent names. He was slaughtered for that in the election. And that's not even anywhere near what we're seeing right now. Like, that's nothing compared to 2024.
Consequence, accountability. You pick the word. It's also part of what people should expect of themselves and the people that they elect. I mean, you're able to do it because the public let you do it. I mean, you think of Gary Hart and Bill Clinton, some of the things that personal indiscretions that today almost brought them down, they would be celebrated and championed. They shouldn't have been. Look at Mr. Trump's alleged own personal life, and he's still a candidate for the President of the United States. I mean, all of us are parents. What the hell does it say to our kids?
Yeah. Well, look, January 6th happened, and it doesn't seem to have stopped him. Gary Hart, though, having a boat named Monkey Business, a little too on the nose to survive that one. But you know, Amanda, on this, like, we struggle with it in our business, right? With lies and misinformation and disinformation is, okay, how much oxygen do you give it to talk about it? Which I think is a little bit naive because it's going to find a platform anyway, right? So you need to put some scaffolding around it, at least in terms of a factual basis. But I'm not sure I've ever seen a president of the United States have to do that. That's a whole different level of response being required.
For sure. Like my mouth dropped because I thought, you're taking away from these critical few minutes that you have to be talking about this absolute tragedy and disaster, this destruction that's going to hit Florida and all of the people who are going to be involved with it. And you have to take that critical time away to denounce former President Trump's the language he's been using, the lies that have been spread, the misinformation that's been spread. But it's incumbent upon you to do it because these lies are dangerous. And I think that that's what was so astounding about it, is that we've come to a place where the President of the United States, in the so few addresses that he gives to the nation, has to take time out to basically admonish, you know, the bad behavior of these bad actors. We are in a crazy time.
All right, Betsy, we got 2 minutes left. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I know that this is, but this is not unprecedented. Trump said and did crazy things during the pandemic. Remember the bleach and the light that you were supposed to inject into yourself before there was a vaccine, and then he lost to Joe Biden by 7 million votes in 2020. He hasn't acknowledged that. His running mate J.D. Vance won't acknowledge that, but he lost. And Elon Musk, well, buying Twitter was the worst business decision in the history of business decisions. I think it's well known that he paid what, $45 million or billion dollars for a platform that is only used by 5% of people who use social media platforms. So it's like it pales in comparison to Facebook and Instagram and other platforms. So I know that Musk is powerful and rich, and I know that Trump is, you know, in a knife's edge battle with Kamala Harris for the presidency, but I'm not sure that this is end of days time, David. I really do think that sanity usually prevails in the end, and it prevailed in 2020, and I suspect it'll prevail on November 5th.
Yeah, but, you know, Jordan, just as a last word, there is a larger media ecosystem that is influenced by Elon Musk and his crowd on social media. So it amplifies sort of beyond the people who actually use the platform. And if one person doesn't leave their house because they think it's going to be confiscated by FEMA and they die.
That's right.
I
mean, I hope that Rob is right. I think that, you know, we have to hope that that's the case, right? But the reality is, and we saw this during the pandemic, people made health decisions based on this disinformation. And so there is a real human cost to it. And I think that it's something we have to grapple with societally. What is the best way to contain this beast that's now out of control?
Yeah, we have to hope. It gets a bit harder each and every day, but it's important. As Joan Riel used to say when she was delivering budgets, Tim, we live in hope for fear of dying in despair. This is former Newfoundland finance minister. Amanda Alvaro, Rob Benzie, Tim Powers, and Jordan Likeness. Thanks so much.